Impact segment tonight, a new poll from the Pew Research Center. That outfit surveyed 38,000 Muslims in scores of countries around the world. It asked some very provocative questions. For example, do you believe that honor killings of women are justified? In Afghanistan, 60% say yes. Pakistan, 41%. Egypt, 38%. Honor killings are if a woman commits adultery, they're dead. Is suicide bombing justified? In the Palestinian territories, 40% say yes. Egypt, 29%. Pakistan, 13%. Must a woman always obey her husband? Malaysia, 96% of Muslims say yes. Morocco, 92%. Pakistan, 88%. So obviously this proves there's an enormous gulf between the Western world and the Muslim world. Joining us now from Portland, Oregon, Harris Zafar, the national spokesperson for the Ahmadiyya Muslim Community USA. Right. So here's what I don't get, Mr. Jafar. There are 1.6 billion Muslims worldwide. A lot of people, all right? 28% of that crew, 28% of 1.6 billion, believe that violence against civilians is justified according to their religion. I mean, that's an enormous amount of people.
So, and that's obviously a matter of concern for us as well. We have to look at the entire context of the survey. Now, one of the things that's important to note is how much of a vast difference there was between American Muslims and non-American Muslims. And it's not because we're pandering to the West. The American Muslims here identify themselves more with Americans than they agreed with Middle Eastern Muslims.
Well, I don't consider American Muslims a problem in the world. I mean, it's 0.5% of the population here. I don't consider American Muslims a problem on any level. I think they're majority, overwhelming majority, good people with a perspective. But our problem is, and we're seeing it with the Boston bombings, our problem is, all right, Muslims overseas who think they can come in here and blow people's arms and legs off and kill 8-year-old boys in the name of Allah. And 28% is a big number. If 28% of Catholics or Baptists or Jews thought that killing civilians was justified by their religion, there would be an outcry and a scandal like you wouldn't believe.
Sure, and that's the point I was driving at, Bill, was that the fact that there are Muslims, not just in America, but other parts of the world, that in greater majority, maybe even, according to this poll, less than 1 out of 10 agreed with any violence or suicide bombing in the name of Islam, indicates that it's not systemic within Islam. There's nothing about the faith.
No, you look at the countries where, number,
if you look at the countries and where this is happening, it's countries that have incredibly high rates of illiteracy. Economic situation is extremely low. And according to Robert Papp, for the professor at Chicago University, who is an authority on terrorism, he said that ever since the 1980s, every single suicide campaign has had at its core a democratic society occupying a land that the terrorists prize. And so this is more of a political matter about land, about occupancy, than it is about religion. So
okay, well,
it's important to make that distinction about where that's happening.
On here, because then I would shred the professor's argument and make him look foolish, because most terror bombings and suicide bombings are directed from one Muslim to another Muslim. All right? Muslims kill Muslims. Sunnis kill Shia, vice versa. They're all killing each other. But I'm going to go back to the core statistic. But you are right to say the more primitive and uneducated the country, the higher the amount of craziness. I mean, there's no doubt that Afghanistan and Pakistan are totally out of control because the people can't read or write and they don't know anything. All right? But 28% of worldwide Muslims on a 1.6 billion basis is a hell of a lot of people. And the world is not going to be able to control that many people who buy into jihad. And this is the problem the world is having. I'll give you the last word.
Oh, thank you. No, to be honest, if there's even half of that or even a quarter of that percentage, that's still too much for us. Because as Muslims who believe in that Messiah that came to reform all Muslims, Mirza Ghulam Ahmad Qadian, as you know, the Ahmadiyya Muslim community has been leading the charge of trying to get moderation and restraint back in the Muslim world. And so we're calling Muslims back. And I think that the reassuring thing is there's a growing number of Muslims that are coming towards moderation, towards reformation. And we see that even in the numbers that our community is growing now to over
You know what I
200
would like to
countries
see
around the
you
world.
guys do, your organization and other American organizations, and maybe some French and British and whatever. I'd like to see you have a worldwide conference, all right? And then issue some guidelines. I mean, you guys got to start to organize and fight
Oh,
back
absolutely.
against this.
And we
Has it
try
ever
to be
been
organized,
done?
and we want our voice to be heard. The
Right.
voice has to be heard because it's a voice of Islam.
Just don't have it in Pakistan, or they'll blow the hell out of you, Mrs. Zavai.
We'll
You know
invite
it.
you over, though.
All right. Directly ahead, a gay activist